Hi, thanks for joining me in the Listen to Grow podcast. This is your daily LGBTQ plus news podcast. I'm Zach Randles-Friedman. Today is Wednesday, July 15th, 2026. We have 6 stories: a murder in Mexico, a law that will out trans kids in New Hampshire, a $1 million courtroom win against the Groomer lie, a trans refugee crisis overwhelming an entire city, a drag queen fighting a $1 billion corporation, and a state trying to protect your right to marry before the Supreme Court takes it away. So let's get started with our first story. The first openly gay mayor in Mexico is dead. Mexico's first openly gay mayor was shot and killed last week, and the story is now only getting the attention it deserves. Benjamin Durano Quezada was 59 years old. He served as the mayor of Fresnillo in a state of Zacatecas from 2013 to 2015, and later a federal deputy in the Mexico's Congress. He made history by becoming the first mayor in Mexican political history to publicly acknowledge being gay while holding elected office. On July 7th, he was exiting an ice cream shop in Guadalajara, where his killer shot him multiple times in the face and fled on a motorcycle. No suspects have been named. No motive has been confirmed. Now, the president was a complicated man. Despite being openly gay, he publicly opposed same-sex marriage, adoption rights for LGBTQ people, and pride parades, rooting his positions in his Catholic faith. He was a man who claimed his own identity was simultaneously working against the rights of his community. But here's what I will say. He was visible an openly gay politician in a country where queer people are routinely and violently targeted. And he's dead. Whatever contradictions he carried in his life, his murder is a stark reminder that visibility in Latin America still carries a very real and very lethal price. Next, New Hampshire just made it legal to out your kid's teacher. New Hampshire governor has signed a law that will force public school teachers to out transgender students to their parents, even when those students are asked to keep it private. Senate Bill 430 requires state-credentialed public school educators to out transgender students to their parents. Under the law, teachers must completely and honestly answer any written parental inquiry about their children within 10 business days, including whether a student has asked to be addressed by a different name or pronouns at school. The new state law effectively reverses a 2024 state Supreme Court decision that upheld students' right to privacy. And the most troubling part, that disclosure is required even if a student has explicitly asked for the matter to remain confidential or fears their safety at home. The state's largest teachers union said the law is vaguely written and risks putting educators in a position of outing a student. LGBTQ plus advocacy group 603 Equality warned it would erode the trust that students depend on between themselves and their teachers. And that trust for some of these kids is a lifeline. This is New Hampshire, a state that has voted Democratic in presidential elections since 2004. The message here is that anti-trans legislation is not just a Deep South story anymore. It is everywhere. And the students most at risk are the ones with the least power to protect themselves. Disgusting. Can't believe that New Hampshire is doing that to these kids. They have enough issues already, and now they're being forced out. Oh, it's horrible. Now, a story about what happens when you fight back and win. 2 Fairfax County Circuit Court juries awarded a gay teacher and an LGBTQ ally parent over $1 million in damages after finding a Virginia Political Action Committee and its leader liable for a defamatory social media post. Robert Rigby Jr. was awarded $350,000, and Vanessa Hall was awarded $750,000 after her separate trials in June. Both were members of the Fairfax County Public Schools Pride, a group that advocates for LGBTQ plus supportive school policies. The lawsuits allege that defendants falsely and meticulously and maliciously linked Rigby and Hall to a child abduction ring and other illegal actions involving children, with posts amplified through the PAC's X account. Rigby told the Washington Blade he was not focused on the payout, saying, "I stood up for myself, I stood up for the teachers who get accused of things all the time, and I stood up for the people in the LGBTQ plus community." The groomer smear has been one of the most vicious weapons deployed against our educators and our community in recent years. 2 separate juries just looked at the evidence and said, there are consequences for this. You do not get to destroy someone's life where they lie just because you're posting from behind a screen. That matters. Next, trans refugees are overwhelming Seattle, and the city is running out of room. A Washington Post investigation has put a number on something our community has known was happening, and the scale is staggering. Since the 2024 election, a nonprofit has helped 1,500 trans people settle in Seattle, more than 20 times the people it aided before the election. The nonprofit is called Traction. People are arriving from Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Kansas, and Idaho, states that have stripped or threatened trans rights. The Seattle LGBTQ Commission has petitioned the city's mayor to declare a civil state of emergency, hoping to make available resources to support the trans, non-binary, and two-spirit refugees the city has received from Republican states. The mayor stopped short of declaring an emergency, but promised to convene a team and develop community-informed responses through August. This is what the wave of anti-trans legislation in this country actually looks like on the ground. It's people packing up everything they own and leaving families, leaving friends, leaving communities they have built, because staying doesn't feel survivable. And cities that have opened their arms and now stretched to the breaking point, that is a policy-made crisis, and we need to say it more plainly. Our next story is Patagonia is suing a drag queen, and it's deeply awkward. So this one's complicated and kind of wild. Patagonia, the outdoor clothing brand, beloved by liberals and environmentalists everywhere in the country, is in the middle of a federal lawsuit against Pattie Gonia, the trail hiking climate activist drag queen whose real name is Wynn Wiley. Patagonia filed a federal lawsuit against Wynn Wiley in January, alleging that the drag queen had moved away from discreet use to a persona to engage in activism to a wide-ranging commercial enterprise, while Wiley fled a trademark application seeking exclusive rights to Pattie Gonia for apparel, marketing, and events. Pattie Gonia called it a corporation trying to erase an activist. This is not a brand conflict. This is not how corporations bully individuals who cannot match their resources, because this would take away not only my activism and career, but also the livelihoods of the team that I employ. Patagonia says it is tried for years to find a resolution that the trademark applications violated a 2022 agreement, and Pattie Gonia says no such binding agreement ever existed. The drag queen has raised $4 million for climate and nonprofits and has 1.8 million Instagram followers and has asked for a full jury trial. The trademark is what it is. The situation is not simple, but the optics of a $1.5 billion corporation dragging a queer climate activist into a federal court in 2026, Patagonia's own communications chief admitted that they think about the reputational cost every single day. So we'll be watching. We'll bring you updates as more come through. And next, we have Virginia is fighting to protect your right to marry before the court takes it. So we close today with a story about getting ahead of something before it gets worse. In Virginia, a state that baked a ban on same-sex marriage into a constitutional back in 2006, advocates and lawmakers have launched a campaign to finally erase that language and replace it with a constitutional guarantee of marriage equality. Equality Virginia Executive Director Narissa Rahami, a former state Senator Adam Ebbin, and ACLU of Virginia are among those who launched the campaign in Richmond. This amendment is about making clear that the government has no business deciding which marriages or which families are worthy of recognition, said the ACLU of Virginia Executive Director Mary Bauer. Same-sex couples can legally marry in Virginia today because of Obergefell, but Obergefell is a Supreme Court ruling, not a constitutional right baked into the state law. And with the current makeup of this court, advocates are not willing to wait and see. Two successive state legislators have approved the amendment before it can go to voters. The first approval has been done. If the newly elected legislation approves it next year, Virginians could look to vote on the marriage equality in a state constitution as early as 2027. You protect what you love before someone else takes it, and Virginia advocates understand that, and so do we. So that was your Listen Up Girl podcast for Wednesday, July 15th. If today's episode gave you something to think about, please share it, send it to a friend, post it, text it to someone who needs to hear it. Follow and subscribe everywhere you listen. And if you have 60 seconds, give a rating and review, because that goes a long way helping new listeners find us. You can follow me on Instagram at @TheRealZachRE, and I'll be back tomorrow. Stay informed and stay in it. Thanks for listening.